the ultimate soccer show. Join me, listen, you'll love it. Everybody does.
Getting down to it, people, we're catching up again with Ryan Anderson, TFC Midwest podcast. Ryan, welcome back in, mate. How you doing?
Happy to be back. Been a great new year so far. Been a great 2023. Hope this year goes off without a hitch. Let's have some fun.
Absolutely. Now, talking about having fun, one of the things, or there's a few things that stop the average football fan, especially Chelsea, and you're Chelsea. Some things that really can get up our nose is bad form, losing games, no end in sight, a bad track record at the moment. I mean, just looking at Graham Potter before we get into this, a little history for everybody just tuning in. His vocation as a coach started in Sweden with Östersund. 3 years there, he signed another 3-year contract. He didn't last 6 years, but he had 6 years on paper. 249 games, 127 wins, 60 draws, 62 losses, and he was 51% as a coach with a winning record, guys, okay? He moved to Swansea City after that. 51 games, 21 wins, 11 ties, 19 draws, and 41% winning ratio, down 10%. Next club, where he's getting all this fame, Brighton and Hove Albion on the south coast of England. He was there a few years, 3 years. 135 games, 42 wins. Get this, guys, 42 wins, 46 draws, 47 losses, 40-40-40. It's Mr. Average, isn't it, eh? 31% win ratio. So from Östersund in Sweden, no disrespect, but he started in the 4th tier, 3rd tier, 2nd tier, then got into the 1st tier. So most of his numbers in Sweden are low league numbers. Bear that in mind. Swansea City, not a low league team, but not in the Premier League. Brighton in the Premier League. The numbers keep going down. Now, Chelsea, right now, 20 games in charge, 9 wins, 4 draws, 7 losses, 45% win ratio. To cap it off, before we get to Ryan, the last 10 games for Chelsea under Graham Potter, 2 wins, 1 draw, 7 losses, 5 goals scored, 13 against, for a win ratio of 20%. His numbers are going down all the time, which leads me to the first question, while we're asking when is Graham Potter going to get fired, maybe after the Liverpool game per se, but it leads me to the first question, Ryan. Why do you think Chelsea hired the guy when, let's face it, I sit thousands of miles away. I've done my research. I've given the numbers out, which can be traced. There's a link down below after this. But why do you think Chelsea hired him? What's in Bowley's mind?
Well, let's just say Todd Bowley don't know what the hell he's doing. Let's just start with that right now. For me, I think he heard the football hipsters giving Graham Potter some love for what he did at Brighton, because he did build a system, but the results aren't as good as the football hipsters would like you to believe at all. And yes, he had that great win over Arsenal in Europa League with Östersund, and he's had historical moments and a system. But the thing about Graham Potter is he just does not have the gravitas to lead a locker room like Chelsea's, where there's player power out the wazoo. And Bowley wants to change the culture, but here's the problem. You can't change the culture if you're just spunking around millions and millions of dollars on players that's also just getting some, hey, the streets are saying Mykhailo Mudryk is this great player. It's like, oh, Arsenal want him. No, I'm going to pay all this money to get him and just gazump them right under their nose. I'm not saying Mudryk is a bad player, but this is not the best place for him. He wanted Arsenal. He was twerking for Arsenal. He wanted Arteta. That was his dream. And they could have easily weaned him in. And if he didn't play well, they could have pulled back and they would have compromised or helped him be better. But Chelsea need to win. They need to win games. That's the position we're in now, because they did have a good purple patch as soon as Potter came in, but I knew that was going to end quickly, because at first I said Potter was going to be a disaster. I did not believe that he was going to be the guy. I thought Tuchel wrongfully got sacked. I think he was hard against Bowley because he knew Bowley didn't know what he was doing, and Tuchel does have a history of going up against the board. He just wants to lead his team and say, I want these guys, get me these guys, let's play football, I'll do my job, you do yours. But I think he hated the fact that he had to do the job himself because there was no director of football when Bowley got into the team, when he owned it. They got rid of everybody, and they never got the players that Tuchel wanted in that last transfer window. They didn't get Rafinha. They didn't get anybody that he wanted. They got Raheem Sterling. They got multiple players. They got Cucurella, which ironically enough makes me think that Bowley wanted to pull this the whole time because let's remember Cucurella came from Brighton under Graham Potter, but he still doesn't look the same that he did last year. So the thing about Graham Potter is I think he was it's just a lot of noise that led to him getting the job, and he just basically floundered as soon as the going got tough. And I don't think he's meant to be a Chelsea manager. And I think the bad thing is Bowley wants to keep him. I think he wants to ride this out, and you just can't do that. I know Chelsea has been a managerial merry-go-round, but if you're worse than Roberto Di Matteo, if you're worse than Avram Grant, if you're worse than Luis Felipe Scolari, I'm sorry, you need to go.
Question to you. You mentioned there in the locker room and leading this club. There's been a lot of great managers at Chelsea over the years, and they all are managers of stature. You rang off a few there. My all-time love of my life in coaching is Jose Mourinho.
Yes.
He did for the Blues like from the start of 2004 moving forward. It was just phenomenal. It was such a love affair the first time. Second time wasn't the greatest. But that man and those men that have led this club have all been men of stature, men with charisma. I look at Graham Potter, and I don't have anything of a dislike to him personally. But when I look for a leader, you look across a part of England, Eric Ten Hag. He's a drill sergeant. He doesn't like the ego tits in the world. He kicks the ego tits out. Ronaldo, I love him. You love him. He's a goat. But he was shown the door, let's be honest. Graham Potter does not command the room, does not command the bench, doesn't even command the white line when he's on it. He looks so timid and afraid of leading that club. I've never seen a guy look so out of place. Brighton was his ceiling. That's where he should have stayed. He should have turned the job down at Chelsea, and he'd still be in a good position with Brighton. Why would you throw that away, what you just built over years? It leads me to believe that he thought he was good enough. I don't think he's ever been good enough. I don't think his tactics are great enough. And when Chelsea get into Europe, they're going to find it's going to be terrible. But the point is, he has no charisma. And without that charisma, how do you think it's possible to lead that club in their dressing room? Do you think he's got a chance? And I think let's talk on Liverpool coming on Saturday too. Go for that one.
When it comes to Chelsea versus Liverpool, both teams are in slumps right now. Of course, Chelsea won the game where they were honoring the life and memory of Gianluca Vialli, legend.
Oh, massive.
And they should have won.
Let's take a moment for Vialli.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a massive loss to the game, man. I mean,
yes.
Wow. What a great person. Really, rest in peace, Gianluca Vialli. From everybody. Amore. Back to you, Ray.
With that being said, they needed to win that game because if they didn't win that game, Chelsea's fan base is already getting toxic, and they loved Vialli. Everywhere that Vialli went, they loved him, and they love him at Chelsea. And if Chelsea had lost that game, I don't know how much worse it would have gotten within the fan base. But Chelsea has a recent win. Of course, Liverpool just won that replay against Wolves. They're not turning a corner, but they can get results. Both teams have got recent results, but they're still in a slump. But the thing about Liverpool is Jurgen Klopp can turn things around. He does have the gravitas to turn things around. Things aren't going well this season for Liverpool, but in a match like this where Chelsea, there's no gravitas in the room, the players don't really want to give it their all. The only spark they had was João Felix, and he's out for 3 games, and they're playing Liverpool, so that's not great. Pulisic's injured. The injury list is getting miles long. What are you going to do? Like, what is there?
The other thing as well is how they're abusing forwards. It's like you've got to come to some accord with the forward line, no? I mean, I also say with that one, are we giving Graham Potter too much rope by thinking about the injuries, the suspensions, the guys that are not on form? Is it all down to the players, or does the coach need to take some responsibility too?
I think Graham Potter needs to take some responsibility because, to me, Tuchel would have still worked through these injuries. Because if you look through patches over time, when he was there were injuries. He had to work through sanctions where they had to take buses to games. They couldn't fly. They had to make ends meet. And Tuchel was that statue that kept them strong during those sanctions earlier in 2022.
Great point. Great.
And that was even more chaos than there is now.
They
so if Graham Potter,
they had a man with
exactly,
charisma, yeah?
And they can't handle this chaos because normally when Chelsea thrives in chaos, it's because they have a manager who has the charisma, who has the balls, who has the stones to step up and say, I'll take these shots. You do your job. I'll take these shots. If we go down, we go down, and they normally perform. But they do not have a guy who will take the shots. They'll say, hey, Christian, step in front and take this bullet for me. Hey, Thiago, take this bullet for me. Hey, Raheem, take this bullet for me. Graham Potter does not take accountability. And then he has these managers backing him up like Pep's like, oh, give him time. Give him time. He's great. I liked him at Brighton. I don't know why Pep thinks he deserves time, but the manager's backing him up. It feels like people are just blowing smoke up Graham Potter's behind. And he's like, yeah, I'm just fine. And Todd Bowley loves me and he wanted me and he doesn't know what he's doing. And it just seems everybody who's close enough is blowing smoke up Graham Potter's behind. And every fan's like, this is a disaster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, looking at that game on Sunday, I mean, give me a scoreline. What are you thinking? Because let's per se play devil's advocate. That's why we're here. If it is sideways, the result on the weekend, are we going to be hearing the fans singing, you're getting sacked in the morning?
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on
Yes.
it? And how serious is this?
The Chelsea fans are getting toxic. And they do have moments where they get angry and get toxic. Look at Maurizio Sarri, that second half of 2018. They ran him out of town, and he still won the Europa League. Graham Potter is winning nothing. You have a sideways result against Liverpool, they're already chanting against him. They're chanting for Roman Abramovich. They're chanting for Jose Mourinho. They're chanting for legends.
I mean, it's amazing.
Already.
When they're chanting Jose Mourinho and Abramovich, guys that aren't even there, that's got to send a signal, yeah? And I mean, let's face it, Bowley, he might be a little bit of a knee-jerk with the acquisitions, maybe doing it too quick and thinking he knows the market, which obviously he does and know a bit about it, but not enough. But when this all boils down, it's like, you've got to say, Chelsea are not in a great spot. I mean, Liverpool on the weekend, scoreline, what do you think?
I think Liverpool's going to have one of those classic bounce-back games. I think it's going to be a 3-1, 4-1 scoreline. I can't see anything else. Liverpool's going to look classic Liverpool like before this season. Like, I just can't see anything else. I see Gakpo having a great game.
Do you think Liverpool's stronger at this stage than Chelsea right now?
Yes, because I think the fight that they had against Wolves and they're bringing in some younger players, I think age is sort of getting up to them, but they're bringing in younger players. They brought in Gakpo. They have Harvey Elliott. They played some younger players on the week against Wolves, and they looked good there. And Klopp says they're in line to start here, and I think that helps. I think they're trying to figure out things.
So let's say the loss comes in, and by a miracle, there's no decision on Sunday because it's probably going to come down Monday. If it doesn't come down Monday, Fulham is next up at home. I hate to see a guy given a second lifeline because the loss possibly at Liverpool should, in my books, be enough to get fired. 8 losses in 11, that's got to be reason to go. You can't blame everybody else. But the Fulham game, let's just say, Chelsea don't lose, or they do lose, irrelevant of the results. Say they lose it for this instance. Then they go to Fulham. Fulham's a game that's not guaranteed either. I know it's a home game, but Fulham is playing a pretty decent season this year for a newbie. If they don't get a result there, what would you think the board would be thinking if he has not been fired with possibly 2 more losses coming? That's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
The thing is, I don't got a read on Bowley. You know, I think Bowley wants to ride this out. Roman would have sacked him already.
Yep.
Roman would have sacked him already. But Bowley, I just think he wants this culture change, but he just doesn't understand how to get it because he's doing the same exact thing. He's just putting out money for big players. If you want a culture change, it has to come through the academy, which I wasn't a big fan of Lampard as a manager, but that's what Lampard tried to do.
I agree.
Lampard tried to get Mason Mount, Reece James, and they're still there. And
Yeah.
Reece James is still a great player. Mason Mount's still a great player. But the problem is if you want to change the culture, you have to go through the academy. You just can't say, oh, I want João Felix. I want Michaela Mudrik. I want Cucurella. You can't do that and give these players giant inflated price tags. You just can't do it.
What about Mudrik? You got Mudrik into the team. Wonder kid. I've watched a lot of his development. I was very impressed with him developing as a young player. He's still very young. But I got to say, there's a big difference between Shakhtar Donetsk and the Premier League. Secondly, he's not a very big guy. Now, this is a really physical league, and I know that you're going to say straight away, Stevie, there's people like Bernardo up at Man City, tiny little guy. You got Moutinho, tiny little guy. There's lots of little guys. I get that there is. But if you look at them guys, they're full of muscle. This Mudrik kid is very slight. And I think that if this doesn't work out, that's going to be another transfer. I hope that doesn't look like Aubameyang, because, like I say, it just seems that people are going to have problems moving forward. If Chelsea has a great game on the weekend and does pull a win, which would not be a shock, let's be honest, there's enough quality at Chelsea to win this game. Do you think Mudrik is liable to factor in a big way, or do you think Liverpool will just put him in his pocket?
I think the thing about Mudrik here is he's a very talented player. I like what I see, but he's definitely one of those players who have to build into the Premier League, who have to get accustomed to it. You always have they have to get accustomed to the league trope, especially in the Premier League. And some players that's truer for others than others. You look at Erling Haaland, he didn't have to get settled. He was just off ground foot running. But you look at Mudrik, and I think this is a move where he's like, I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted Arsenal. That's what he's probably thinking. And he's like, this isn't going to go well because all the hopes are on me now because of my price tag, because of where the team is. And they know how good my Wonder Kid name is.
Yeah.
The fact that Arsenal got dumped by Chelsea. And that's probably what he's thinking in the back of his mind. And I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that helps his performance. I think he may have some flashes like João Felix did, and I'm not saying he's going to get a red card, but I think he's going to get pocketed, even though he's going to have a couple of flashes.
He can have one of these any day. But you know what, João Felix, I mean, that epitomizes the actual striker problem at Chelsea. I mean, I can't understand why Atletico Madrid would let him go. I know why they've let him go, but that's a talent that you want to keep. Or is it a talent? Is he going to make a difference? Or is he a kid that's the nearly next one that really is disappointing people over time? He scores one great goal in a blue moon, and then he does nothing. And he fades away. I think it's the
Simeone.
Absolutely.
I think
it's absolutely
the way Simeone wanted him to play. He's a winger. Yeah. He's not a wing back. Absolutely. And Simeone's just like, hey, step back, defend. You have to let him play in the middle or play on the wing and actually play attacking. And as you saw against Fulham when he made his debut, the 60 minutes he was on, he looked amazing. He looked like the João Felix that we thought he was back when he was at Benfica, and as he did at the World Cup as well.
That first 20 minutes at Fulham for Chelsea, I was expecting a goal. And I mean, he nearly scored a couple. Like, he was really on fire that first 60 minutes, he was good too. But the red card, I mean, come on. If he'd have looked at that again, he wouldn't have lunged in. He's not a dirty player. That's not in his nature. But it's a big, big loss because, you know what? You sit out and you can't be active, and then you don't get into gel with things. And then the coach looks for another excuse to why it's not happening. Has anybody given a thought that he doesn't have the room, that maybe nobody respects this coach because he's really done nothing in the big game? You can't tell me 4th, 3rd, 2nd division Sweden is where you want to rest your cap. Other than that, how do you get to respect a coach like him that doesn't really give you any reason to fight for the cause, like a guy like Klopp or Guardiola, maybe Ten Hag, even Arteta, and maybe on his good day, maybe Conte? But do you think that this guy's got the room, or he never had the room?
I think they wanted I want to say they wanted to give him a chance. I want to have that hope that at first they were like, hey, we didn't want Tuchel to get sacked, but we'll give him a chance. But I think that rope ran out quickly if they did give him a chance. I don't know if he ever had the room.
That's what I'm feeling because, when you look on the sideline and you see a coach in his moment, it's like he's holding a hot potato all game long. He doesn't look confident on the bench. He doesn't look behind. His assistants are left and right from him, from Brighton. No disrespect, Brighton on the coast, but your assistants at Brighton are not near the level that Chelsea needed from the start. I look around him and I think that Potter really is in a situation where he's lost at sea. I think that the time will come where you're going to have to kick him out, and I think that Chelsea will fast approach that too. Bowley's going to have to make a decision here fast, but if you can't get that team firing with the quality on that squad, I got to ask what you have in your toolbox as a coach. You don't need just tactics. You need man management. You need to be confident that your players listen to every word. And like I said many times, once you've been managing a club for a couple of years, guys switch off. If you don't command the locker room within the first 2 days, you'll never get that room. You have to instill yourself as the leader apparent. I don't think he's ever been the leader. I think he's got no confidence. I don't berate, but I don't rate his tactics. I think at the end of the day, we're getting very close to having enough of losing. Chelsea's blue colours are not there to lose games on the continual span of 20 games. Right now, we're halfway to losing 16 and 20. That is not Chelsea. That's not good enough. And even if Bowley can't see it, he has assistants at the club that have been there for years. And everybody knows what business is in football. It's results. If you don't bring the results, you have to go. I think a loss at Liverpool, for me, is enough for him to be fired. I wouldn't give him the chance to Fulham. I'd go without a coach into Fulham and get the next guy in. It's critical now to turn this season around. Even the top 4 place is miles away. And that is a basic for Chelsea on every calendar season, is qualifying for Champions League. From going from Champions League winners in short term to where we are now, that is not down to the players. That is down to the club, the acquisitions, and most of all, the coach. So I'm saying I am done with him. If he loses on Sunday, I'm not blaming the players because they're not going to play for a coach that doesn't make them into a winning team like Eric Ten Hag, or I say Eric Tenacious Hag, has done at Manchester United, just to give it an example. Like Klopp has done over years before Liverpool were great, like Pep Guardiola did many years ago to make Man City a great club. Graham Potter's never going to be there. So I'm saying, for my money, fire him after the game if we lose. How kind are you going to be? What are you feeling?
If it was me, if it was my decision, I would have fired him already. But if they lose on Sunday, he's got to go. Like, there's no other way around it. The position that they're in, the run that they've been on, they've been knocked out of the third round for the first time in both cup competitions domestically.
Yeah.
For the first time in ages. You have a season that's reminiscent of 2015. You have to make the move. What,
Yep.
Are you going to wait till Dortmund and they get dropped out by Borussia Dortmund without
Exactly.
Haaland? Do you really want to wait to make that move then, and you're behind the 8 ball even more? Because that's, a month from now?
Yeah.
No, you have to do it now. You cannot. I understand there wants to be a culture change, but again, this was a disaster for anybody who was paying attention, who knew what Graham Potter was from the first moment, because I said it from day one. Second one, as soon as I heard Tuchel got sacked and I heard the rumor, I'm like, nah, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then it got announced. I'm like, don't like this. I called it from moment one. Here we are. They had that purple patch before the World Cup. Don't know how they managed that. It's still wild to me. And now here we are. The true ability of Graham Potter, the true ability of Todd Bowley's Chelsea. You have to make the move. If they lose, you have to make the move. I don't see any world where you rightfully can say, nah, we'll stick with it. It's fine. It's all good. You can't do that.
Absolutely.
There's no world where you could do that.
It's crunch time now. I mean, guys listening in, Drop a message down below. What do you think? Does Potter last out for more games? I mean, 7 losses in 10. Is it going to be 8 and 11? Because if it's 8 and 11, you've got to start a wage in with a comment about where he's going or how long he can stay, or why did they even pick him up? Ryan, thanks again, my friend. This has been absolutely glorious. I hope Chelsea win on the weekend, obviously, but I'm not too sure we are. And you were mentioning a 3-1 win. I had this crazy premonition that it's a 4-0 loss. I hope I'm wrong, but I just had a...
I said 3-1 to Liverpool.
Yeah, you said 3-1 to Liverpool. I'm saying 4-0 to Liverpool. I'm thinking it could be that bad. So we're both up on the high scores, which if you look at what we've quoted back in the past, people, Ryan and I, we're pretty good on bringing you the facts. Even remember the World Cup, we got the Final Four and all sorts of great stuff. So you're being led well. Guys, bring it here. Come back after the weekend, and maybe you'll hear the Chelsea fans singing, "You're getting sacked" in the morning. If not them, it may well be the Liverpool fans. Ryan, thanks again, buddy. It's been an absolute blast, mate. And from Chelsea boy to a Chelsea boy, let's have it. Let's get for this. Cheers, mate.
Let's go. Peace.
This is Ultimate Soccer with Soccer Steve.